and today I'm going to cover macros for amputees. I asked you guys, did you know actually that there was such a thing as macros specifically for amputees, and the response I received was that the majority of you did not know that was the case. I know there's a question Jilly Atkins asked me, what's the actual difference between normal macros as opposed to macros for amputees? Well, to answer that question, Jilly, the difference would be, obviously for macros, it calculates your, simple terms would be your carbohydrates, protein and fat intake, and depending on what your goal is, be it fat loss, I think the calculation on average is about a 40-40-20 split, so it would be 40% protein, 40% carbohydrate and 20% fats. But however, you can have a play around with that, depending on your weight and how you respond to that macro regime. So that's kind of a basic one as to you probably lose weight, but it doesn't dictate that you would actually respond to actually doing that. So it would vary very much to you as the individual. Obviously, if we looked at maintaining, it would be slightly different, and then obviously if you're looking to put muscle mass on, it is on average, between, it'd be less emphasis on the protein, which is quite surprising. You would have more emphasis on the carbohydrate because you are looking at it from both a recovery standpoint, but also getting enough energy, and because the body wants to increase obviously its muscle mass, so it's to withstand that extra workload. And obviously from that emphasis, you would have a less of a what's the word I want? Less of a necessity for having fats, because obviously that is not your goal. Obviously, to come back to my point and actually answering why is it there's such a thing for specific, well, to kind of cut a small long story short, it is to do with, it looks at, it calculates what your body weight was when you were an able-bodied individual against what your weight is now as an amputee, and it will calculate for the missing limb. So obviously, because you're not having well, I could say to a certain extent the limb is not working at its full potential like the other one. If you are, say for example, a single leg amputee or a single arm amputee, obviously you would have that calculation. Okay, there is that argument I've had discussed with another trainer who was also on this group, Trevor, about obviously because both of us have a congenital disability, so calculating that difference between what is missing limb would be an interesting one to actually do further research in, because okay, we don't have a starting point from to gauge it off. So okay, you could associate, you could kind of hazard a guess as to what the difference would be, and then calculate the macros. But is obviously a better one in terms of obviously the people who had it through, well, accident, trauma, disease, and and what etc. as to for them to get a better nutritional one. So what we're going to look at doing, Trevor and I, was to run a webinar in the near future and explain the kind of the ins and outs of how it works. Obviously, because it's a very complex equation, it's a macro equation. For an able-bodied individual, it's quite straightforward. It's you only have to work out, obviously, your protein intake relative to your body weight. Carbohydrate would be relative. So, like I was saying, your obviously what your goal is, be it weight loss, maintenance, or muscle mass, and that would equate to obviously your levels of exercise. But let me backtrack there. It's actually, no, it would work out your fats relative to your exercise intensity and what you actually want to eat in your diet, be it you want to have foods that are a little bit higher in fats. You have to equate it for that. You have a different calculation as opposed to if you were craving the likes of pasta, rice, which would be a different one. So you'd have a different calculation for that one, and obviously your carbs are then worked out from your proteins and your fats, and then it's divided by 4, and then you'd get what your daily carbohydrate is. Whereas with the Amputee one, it's a little bit more complex than that. Obviously, you've got all those plus that equation which I was talking about with the missing limb, and that will equate for that. And what we were going to do on that webinar was to explain that, and then look to give it you in simple terms, and then give it up to you as to how you wanted to proceed. So if you've got any further questions to what I've explained tonight, obviously do put them in the comment section below, and I will do my utmost to answer them. So until next week, I'll see you guys then.